Please welcome back the Mayor of Oklahoma City, the Honorable Mick Cornett.
Thank you all very much. Please continue to eat. It is my opportunity to kind of sum up what we've heard today, but at the same time, kind of get to a new idea or something that I'd like to explore and communicate to this particular audience that I might not have had an opportunity to communicate on any other day. There are opportunities to speak on a wide variety of things that aren't necessarily appropriate for a State of the City address or an after-dinner club or a luncheon audience typically. But I think this particular audience kind of lends itself to particular information. And I thought I would draw your attention to the fact that a lot of national attention is starting to be distributed about Oklahoma City. As most of you know, if not all of you, our Chamber of Commerce annually makes a trip somewhere to learn from somebody else's experiences. We have visited many cities through the years, but we go once a year. And so you would think on average then that there might be another city around the country that might want to learn something from us. And so you would think that you would make one visit a year, you might receive one visit a year. And the last time I heard is that we have 6 cities pending visits into Oklahoma City. Yeah, give yourself a round of applause because they're here to figure out how we've done what we've done and what we're continuing to do. And that can mean lots of different things. I am able to do about 1 or 2 out-of-state speaking engagements a month, but the requests are many times that. And so it has gotten me to think and examine and trying to figure out how Oklahoma City did emerge as this blossoming urbanist community. And I think to a certain extent it goes back to the experiences that we've shared and, perhaps most importantly, what we learned from them. And in this generation alone, you know, we have learned a great many things about humility. You only have to go back to that July 5th day in 1982 when the Penn Square Bank closed and the federal regulators came in, and then we know how the economy went for the rest of 82 and 83 and 84. And just when you thought you hadn't seen the bottom, there was 1985. And before you know it, the rest of that decade was over and over 100 banks had closed in the state of Oklahoma. And I think to a certain extent that impacted all of us in so many ways that are apparent today. First of all, we had a generation of young people who might have received higher collegiate degrees who couldn't find jobs that measured up to their educational attainment. They probably are somewhere else today. I think it made our banking environment very, very conservative. And I think how we learned from that was illustrated in the 1990s when we tried to gather some traction and we tried to go to our citizens and try to get them to invest in economic development ideas. And we saw that there was interest in doing something better for the city, but we just couldn't figure out exactly how to get there. And we saw a couple of failed initiatives in the 1980s. And then the well-told story about United Airlines and their maintenance facility and what may fall under the definition of the best thing that never happened to Oklahoma City. Because as most of you in this room know, that's kind of what led indirectly to the first MAPS initiative that has fundamentally laid the groundwork for most of the good things that are happening in the city today. What we continued to learn throughout the 90s and our conservative economic development standards that continued, what we learned from the Oklahoma City bombing about ourselves and about our community and about the way the rest of the country felt about us, and that as the MAPS project started to open, and we and ourselves started to see that we had a community, really for the first time in our generation, that was worthy of inviting people from other parts of the country to come see. We had always, I think, envisioned ourselves as a good place to live and a good place to raise a family, but not necessarily a great place to visit. And with MAPS, all of that started to change. And we were on really the front end. We weren't the first in line, but we were on the front end of the paradigm shift that saw communities realizing that the future of economic development was that people were going to live where they chose to live, and that the jobs were going to follow the people. And that if you created a quality of life, if you invested in your infrastructure and tried to illustrate to both the public and the private sector that your community was worth investing in, that the human capital would follow. And it's those human capital success stories that are really fueling Oklahoma City today, and which I think gives me the most confidence about the city going forward. One element of our city's leadership structure that I began to take first notice of during the MAPS 3 campaign was the large number of people under the age of 35 who were interested in getting involved in their community. And at first, I have to tell you, it scared me to death. You know, they were untested. They to a certain extent, they lacked experience in these types of endeavors. And I don't think any of us knew necessarily exactly how to direct them, how to lead them, how to corral the energy and enthusiasm in a positive way. But I think what we've now seen is that these people are much more capable than we gave them credit for. The leadership in that next generation is extremely deep. And if anything gives you confidence about the continuing blossoming of this community, it should be that next generation, the education that they've received, the lessons they learned not only from our predecessors but from us, and the idea that the mistakes that have been made don't necessarily have to be repeated, and the idea that they want to continue to raise the standards for what's acceptable. And you see that in public works projects today. And what we had inspired our civil engineers to do 20 years ago is not what we've inspired them to do today. And that the planning department has a major role to play in the development community's role in this city, I think is something you see playing out today on a very widespread basis. So I tell you much of this so that you'll be able to pass on these talking points when you are inevitably asked by people who live outside the city about Oklahoma City. But to the general question of what's going on there, how did you all make that happen, I think you will have your own story, your own version of what you saw take place and how that played out and how the elements fell into place for this renaissance that is fully underway and likely to continue for the near future. But understand that at the end of the day, when you live in a community whose tax funding structure is required to go to the polls and get over 50%, you better have most of the people pulling on the same rope. And it could be our shared experiences, it likely is, but for whatever reason, what these 6 cities that are come to visit Oklahoma City are going to find out, that everything we've done is not all that complicated, but what is not easy to duplicate is the unity inside this community. And for that, I hope you'll give yourselves a round of applause right now. Our unemployment rate is an unexplainably low 4.4%. I know that's unexplainable because I'm usually the one asked to explain it. You heard Mayor Becker say that in cities like ours and his, in which unemployment is remarkably low and several points lower than a lot of other cities, especially those sometimes that get higher profile, it sometimes is embarrassing to talk to mayors and civic leaders in other parts of the country that are going through really traumatic times. When you have to go to your citizens and explain why you're laying off public safety officials and school teachers and closing libraries, those are really, really tough times and really, really difficult things to do. And if there's anything that should give you comfort and make you feel less guilty about going to sleep tonight, it is those combined experiences that we shared. Because at the end of the day, all of the good things that are happening are things that we deserve. We've taken the right steps, and we've been through some really tough times in this generation. And everything that's happening now is something that we deserve to happen to us because we've seen the other side. There's a lot going on in the city. And in trying to prepare remarks for this part of the luncheon, I thought, one of the best things we could probably do for people is to try and somehow corral the list of things that are about to open or have opened since the last Mayor's Development Roundtable, and try to show a picture of it, and if we can throw in a data point or a bullet point of information about it, it may be a project that people weren't necessarily interested in. The problem we ran into immediately was there's just too much stuff going on. I thought it would be a very finite project to put together, the 10 or 15 things that in my mind I knew were going to be opening here in 2012, and the list got longer and longer, and at some point we just came to the conclusion, well, let's just do the best we can. And to the extent that it won't be comprehensive, I hope you'll forgive us. I think Secretary Ray LaHood made a comment that in certain ways points out one of the reasons we're succeeding. His quote is, "It's been proven time after time, investments in our national infrastructure create jobs and opportunities. Americans can and must build great things, not just in spite of enormous economic challenges, but also as the means of overcoming them." I think it's both reflective and responsible for our economy right now to realize that we have just completed, but we're in the finishing stages of the largest public sector construction project in state history, the relocation of Interstate 40, and the largest private sector construction in state history, and that being the Devon Tower. That has not only shown a reflection of our stronger economy, but it has spurred the economy. The number of jobs that was created by the Devon Tower at the height of the construction, and this was me doing the math, so it's probably not worth passing along once you leave the rooms. It's probably an estimate. But my experience was, in going through the numbers roughly, was that the construction on the Devon Tower was basically equivalent to a Thunder home game every day. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked about the economic impact of the Thunder. And you start thinking, okay, well, that tower was under construction for over a year, and certainly there were some days when it had a larger impact than other days. But the economic impact of that tower was no small feat, as I'm sure Secretary LaHood would attest. We'll go through some of the projects now. Of course, I mentioned the opening of Interstate 40. We held the grand opening in January. You can't help but have noticed now that there's a lot of is deconstruction, is that a word? The deconstruction of the old bridge that held up the old I-40 platform is now being taken down, and we're in the final stages of planning the boulevard, and of course the boulevard will take place, and we have a timeline set of 2014 for the boulevard to replace this old alignment of Interstate 40. There's no question, though, it's a much improved road, and I think one that we're going to look back years and years from now and say, why did it take us so long, to realize the opportunities there. The Skydance Bridge, really the first element of core to shore. Core to shore, in a sentence, the idea of taking downtown development from the core of the city down to the river. And the reason we had to build the Skydance Bridge earlier rather than later was because ODOT didn't think it was a great idea to be building that after the traffic had been relocated. So the good news was we got to front end the Skydance Bridge and get to enjoy it longer. But I think those of you who have seen it, especially at night, will appreciate its beauty and the communication that I think it sends to people across the country as you travel on I-40 is that, hey, that's something they didn't have to do. That city stepped up and did something special on what could have been just a pedestrian bridge. It is 20 feet wide. The bridge span is 380 feet long. The sculpture itself is 192 feet above I-40. It weighs 105 tons. We are in the final stages right now of building a bicycle trail that will connect you with basically the core of downtown down to the river. So even though the park has not been constructed yet, there will be a path that is semi-developed, but a complete path that you'll be able to take a long walk or a bicycle trip and enjoy the Skydance Bridge in the time before that the park opens up. I don't have to tell you much about Project 180 because you live and breathe it every day. There are 6 packages inside of Project 180. 4 have been completed. The fifth package is that area around City Hall. So you see the park and you see the Patience Landing Circle there under construction. That'll be completed in just a few weeks. There's one package left that we may break up into two packages. It's a decision our Public Works Department is trying to make right now, but it involves Park Avenue as well as the area in front of the Sandridge construction. And so we're working with Sandridge and trying to time the construction and also trying to determine how much of Park Avenue we want to tear up at once. Obviously, it's a major thoroughfare and something we want to take in with great consideration. As has already been mentioned, the Spokies program has already had its first announcement, and it launches this Friday. There are 6 stations in Oklahoma City. There's one in Midtown, one in Deep Deuce, one at the ballpark, one at the library, one at the National Memorial, and then one in that area between the Convention Center and Chesapeake Arena. I got a feeling this is going to exceed our expectations like most of the other things that we've been doing of recent years. In the Health and Safety Department, in the 2007 bond issue, we knew we had fire stations to build. We decided to go ahead and seek LEED certification on that, and indeed, this fire station, which opened since the last Mayor's Development Roundtable back in September, has been certified LEED Silver. It's pretty neat. If you go by there, I think you'll see that it's not the fire station we've been building for a long, long time. The Dean McGee Eye Institute also had an expansion that took place in 2011. Our diverse economy sometimes, I think, overlooks the tremendous amount of medical research and medical facilities that go on in our community, and we have a handful of them here. Here's a picture of the Oklahoma Cancer Center, which opened in 2011. Beautiful building. OMRF had a research tower open last December. Oklahoma Heart Hospital with expanding its campus. This is in South Oklahoma City, and it's under construction as we speak. It's expected to be completed this summer. There's a lot of housing going on, and much of it going on in the inner city. This is the Edge breaking ground in June of 2012. These are new apartments located at 13th and Walker, 252 units here. Should be complete sometime in 2013. The Level is located at 2nd and Walnut, 228 units. I walked over there over the weekend and kind of acted like I belonged and just started walking around and talked to some people who were in the process of moving in. And then you see a lot of construction still taking place. So one of those settings where construction's taking place on one side of the building and people are actually living on the other side of the building. But an extremely exciting project for those of us who have been hoping for more and more downtown housing units to open up. The Native Roots grocery store will open inside this development in July. As you know, education will never be the same as a result of Maps for Kids. This is Cesar Chavez Elementary School. It opened in the fall of 2011. Maps for Kids rebuilds or renovates 73 schools. We have 8 projects that are kind of getting the most attention right now. A lot of it's in the middle schools. Emerson Alternative School, Rogers Middle School, Webster's Middle School, Taft Middle School, Jefferson Middle School, Roosevelt Middle School, as well as the Downtown Elementary School that Mayor Humphreys talked about earlier, and the administration building, which is receiving a lot of attention right now as a site is being located. We're also, as a result of Maps for Kids and the 2007 school bond issue, putting new gymnasiums in all of the city elementary schools. So that's 47 new gymnasiums that we're doing not only for the education that takes place in there, but to try and again establish ourselves as a healthier community. We're also doing a lot with libraries. This is the library that's at Southwest 134th Street. It opened in March. Was paid for out of bond issue that was passed until 2000 and 2007. In the first 3 days, had over 1,000 people come through the doors, and in the first month, they had 26,000 books checked out. Hopefully, checked back in as well. At 122nd and MacArthur, the Northwest Oklahoma City Library, we will be naming this on May 22nd, the Patience S. Ladding Library. And Mayor Ladding, I understand, is excited and will be attending the opening of the event. She makes very few public appearances, as you know. And so we're excited that she's excited. And this is a pretty amazing building itself, and it is LEED certified. I believe it received silver certification. and it'll be opening here in just a few days. As far as arts and culture, I think one of the things that I implore you to show visitors from out of town is the land-run sculptures that are continuing to get larger and larger down on the canal. I made several, trips down there over the winter as I'm showing people from out of town, and almost every one of them had the same response. It was, I had no idea. And some of these people lived in Oklahoma, but we have not done an adequate job, I think, of promoting and leading people to this. If you don't get on the canal boats, it's kind of hard to find, and you may not hear about it. But when you do not take this for granted. We have more statues coming out. 29 of the 38 sculptures have already been completed. 27 of them have already been installed, and there are 2 more that are going to be installed shortly. But it continues to develop, and I think somehow in the back of our minds we've been thinking, well, when we're done, we'll start marketing it. Well, we might as well go ahead and marketing it, because no telling how long it's going to take to get all those pieces out of the foundry. But it is worth seeing and showing today, and when you stand up next to those statues, it takes your breath away. And I think to those of us who are fans of this city and this state, it also is very reminiscent of just how daring and brave our forefathers were. Perhaps the most eye-opening success story of 2011 is the Myriad Gardens renovation. It's receiving national attention as a true example of a great urban park, and you don't have to spend much time there to see why. I took my granddaughter there over the weekend. It was her second visit, and the biggest problem with going is I can't ever get her to leave. I mean, literally, it's me holding her feet and her holding on to one of the elements, and the 2 of us having a tug of war. Also, if the weather's nice, you probably should take a change of clothes, because my 5-year-old was drenched. Her dress was soaked as a result of getting into the water feature, and she couldn't have had a better time, but careful planning when you take a 5-year-old. The Bicentennial Park is under construction, if you've seen. We intend to have this open by September, so cross your fingers for good weather for a construction schedule. Right now we're a couple of weeks ahead of the schedule, which is really, really good. But the Civic Center will be holding its 75th anniversary this September, and it would be lovely if we could dedicate the park at that time. As far as entertainment goes, I think a piece of architecture that the audiences that I've had a chance to show it to just have their jaw drop is the Chesapeake Finish Line Tower. It opened in September of 2011, and I think this is going to be a centerpiece for all of the great things that are happening down on the river. And we have created already the finest venue in the world for those sports of canoe, kayak, and rowing, and we're not done yet. We're putting in the permanent lighting and the permanent grandstands and the whitewater facility. And then there's things like the youth pavilion, the zip line ropes course, the OU-UCO boathouse. The zip line is going to open with the pavilion, so if you thought it was not enough for you to row on the river, you're now going to be able to fly across the river. And we are aiming for a 2013 construction time frame for the youth pavilion, but it appears that the ropes course and the what we're calling the Blue Cross Blue Shield Blue Zone, which is for the kids, is going to open up this summer in late September. So if you haven't been to the river lately, this is one of those parts of the city where you have to go about every month or 2 because it will change. Almost forgotten in a lot of our construction projects are the improvements that we continue to make to the Chesapeake Arena. These improvements that you see here are opening on the southwest side. I'm pretty sure they're going to be open for next basketball season, for the 2013-2014 or 2012-2013 season. And it will start to redirect attention toward what will become the boulevard. And to a certain extent, this construction is kind of hard to see because when you enter for a game now, you come in from the north side. This will be the main entrance into the Chesapeake Arena in the years and decades to come. And it will be being completed in the early fall. And we've had a Citizens Advisory Board who has done great work. As you know, the revenue on this project came in under expectations, and so changes and challenges emerged. And the Citizen Oversight Board that's been looking after it's done a wonderful job of making sure this was a world-class project. and would live up to the higher standards that we have placed upon ourselves. And that board will be dissolved after the work is done, and so we'll be doing a community round of thank yous for those citizens who have dedicated their time to that project. Another project, which is a little bit under the radar screen because the Thunder don't exactly like us hanging around for their practices, but the practice facility has opened, and it's the best in the NBA, and that's kind of what we want our team to be, so why shouldn't their practice facility reflect that? It is designed to be the players, home away from home, their office, and also I think perhaps it's been unspoken, but let me speak it. We're a small market team. This year, next year, 10 years from now, we're going to be competing with a lot of other cities for talent. And things like the practice facility play into the minds of these young men when they're trying to determine where they want to live and take their basketball futures. So I think this gives us, if not a competitive advantage, at least allows us to hold our own against a lot of really tough factors. And if you're not a member of the Thunder, you can go here. This is our new outdoor facility at southwest corner of Walker and Reno. It's across from La Luna. I drove by the other day and I saw a 5-on-5 game taking place. It's open daily until 11 p.m. My anecdotal evidence has been, I've not been on the court myself, but I have purchased a basketball, so actually dribbling it will be the next step. But I intend to be out there, and I think it's one of those things that we're going to scratch our heads and say, why didn't we do this earlier? It's on the site of what will be the new convention center. So it's obviously not going to be permanent. We're not going to build the convention center around it. But if it's as successful as I think it will be, we're going to have to at some point try to figure out how we do more of this. Other projects. This is the Paycom corporate headquarters that opened last summer. Boeing is opening their plant summer of 2012. It's open. Oh, Dick Tannenbaum says it's already open. It's already summer. Chesapeake Energy has their Child Development Center. This is buildings 12 and 13. These projects are going to be completed this year. Chesapeake's been building for about 10 years straight now. Sandridge Energy, as you know, is redoing an entire block. The Sandridge Commons is supposed to be completed this October. We're also working on the Streetscape project as part of Project 180. And then the Braniff building will be done, estimated time of June of 2013, so just over a year from now. The Devon Energy corporate headquarters, a huge impact on downtown development. We'll be talking more about that in a few moments. The Westtown Resource Center was our opportunity to consolidate a lot of the social services that are available in Oklahoma City. This is a $6.3 million facility, but the idea is to become kind of a one-stop shop for social services with multiple agencies and a day shelter located on site. And here's where we start getting into this. We can't possibly make this a complete list because there's been so many opportunities for shopping and dining opening up. And here's kind of a collage of some of them. Whole Foods opened up last summer, Anthropology, Elemental Coffee, Native Roots Market, Schlegel Bicycles and Automobile Alley, Sunflower Market opened up, Fuzzy's Tacos, of course the food court in Devon, Hideaway Pizza, Cool Greens, Tucker's has already opened up one location and they're coming to Class and Curve, Urban Roots, the S&B Burger Joint has opened up. And if your next statement is that all? Well, it's probably not all, but it's all we could gather pictures of in the few days that I asked the staff to come up with this. But I think, what all of this shows is that this is a very, not just interesting time, but dynamic time. And I thought, 2011 seemed to be a year where we didn't open a lot, compared to what we've done in other years. And I think that's probably reflective of the poorer economic times in 2008 and 2009 and some into 2010. Because what we've seen in 2012 is there's going to be a number of ribbon cuttings. All right, let's transition now from my remarks into the Mayor's Award for Outstanding Development. This is an annual award, and I'll go back through the past winners. We started this back in 2008. by awarding the Skirvin Hotel with the award for outstanding development. In 2009, we brought in the leaders of Bricktown. In 2010, we honored Presbyterian Health Community and the whole complex there. In 2011, we honored Chesapeake, and I am proud to announce that the 2012 award for outstanding development will be presented to Devon Energy. Yeah. Anyone who's been within a 20-mile radius of downtown has seen it. It's Devon's new headquarters, 1.8 million square feet. It's 50 stories tall, 850 feet high. While the building is still under construction, employees have begun moving in, and preparations are underway for the building's official opening this fall. There is no question that Devon's new headquarters building has dramatically changed the Oklahoma skyline. And while many companies likely would stop there, Devon Executive Chairman Larry Nichols knew this project was going to be large and was able to help leverage his impact of that building to make this community even greater. The site Devon chose was located in an existing tax increment financing district. Of course, these are known as TIFs. The districts capture a portion of the tax monies generated by new developments to help create financial incentives to bring even more improvements into the area. Now, typically, owners of these new projects coming into a TIF district seek to tap into the revenues, helping to pay some of the infrastructure that might be incurred by the construction costs. Devon looked at it and decided to ask the city of Oklahoma City if they could create a separate TIF within the TIF that would only collect monies from Devon's new development. The only catch was that Devon did not want to use any of the money on the construction of their new building. Instead, Larry Nichols had a vision for improving downtown and creating an area that would attract businesses to relocate to downtown Oklahoma City besides his own. The TIF made it possible to completely renovate downtown streetscapes and parks, and as you now know, it has been known as Project 180. This renovation, this initiative is drastically improving downtown's curb appeal. The new streets feature bike lanes, updated signage, attractive lighting, newly paved sidewalks. There are bountiful trees, contemporary benches, and we're beginning to see how this project is providing continuity and creating a cohesive look to the rest of downtown. Project 180 is also responsible for the recent makeover of the Myriad Botanical Gardens, and while the Crystal Bridge provided the city with an iconic attraction, the berms and the other features were preventing that park from being everything it could be. Larry's vision helped create a special place that the success of the gardens could only bring more and more people into downtown. So the Myriad Gardens Foundation became a key partner in this project. They started hosting public meetings to help the team of city leaders and key stakeholders understand what elements the community might best enjoy and work with as the team went through the process. So after much planning and construction, what we see today is a garden that invites people to enjoy beautiful gardens and amenities for everyone. There is a bold water feature that captivates people as they enter the gardens from the central business district, a pavilion that offers a place for farmers markets and other events. There's the children's gardens that features a thunderstorm fountain, hedge maze, and plenty of educational play and structures. That's where my granddaughter got wet. A plaza provides a peaceful place during the summer. It'll be making way for an ice rink in the winter. We have a dog park that allows pets to enjoy the gardens. And we'll have a restaurant that'll be opening later this year in this space. All in all, it's dramatically changed downtown Oklahoma City just when we thought it couldn't change any more than it already had. Please join me in recognizing Devon Energy and Larry Nichols for their commitment to Oklahoma City and extensive contributions to downtown revitalization. Larry?
Thank you very much, Mayor. You know, Oklahoma City has the only mayor in the entire country that, because of our economic development, drives around town with a shovel in his trunk, just in case there's some drive-by groundbreaking that he needs to go to. it's really an envious position to be in, Mayor, to be in that situation. Thank you very much for this award. It, of course, goes to a whole lot of people, to Picard Chilton, who designed it, to Heinz, who's our developer, to Holder and Flintco, who are actually running the small army, medium-sized army of workers that work on that every day. It's been a great pleasure to see how it has changed Oklahoma. When we first started this project, the architects said, how would you define success? Which seems like an easy question, and my first thought was something that houses all of our employees, that that gets us all in one building, so that we're a unified team one more time. And they said, well, would you define success as tall? I said, no, that's just ego stuff, tall. If we wanted to make it tall, in fact, our podium is a block and a half long, it's 400,000 square feet. It's about the same size as the old Kerr McGee, now Sandridge building. We could stick that on its side and have another tall building here, but they're the kind, or stick it up and have a really tall building, but someone always has a taller building. And then we thought of beautiful, because beautiful is not something like height that's fleeting. And so we looked around at other cities and saw square buildings, rectangle buildings with flat roofs, with little deviations here and there to make them interesting. We challenged the architects to come up with something that would not be zany, would not be off the wall and impractical, but would be a little more interesting than your usual square building with a flat roof. And that's what they came up with. Unified by a big rotunda. If you haven't gone into the 6-story glass rotunda, which serves as a town hall, as a hub and spoke for other buildings, please go there. Because if you tell me the building's beautiful, I smile. If you say it's tall, that's not really it. But then we really landed on, after some thought, it occurred to me that how you would really judge success of a project like this. And that is that if our employees, when they went home at night and met with their spouse, met with their parents, met with their kids, said, I work in the best building, the best office building anywhere in the United States that I've ever seen in my life. And it is really gratifying to me to see, if you go down on a Saturday or Sunday, I left something in office and had to go down on Sunday and pick it up. There were 3 different sets of employees that on a beautiful Sunday were down there with the whole entourage of the family, the little kids, not the family dog, thankfully, but the whole entourage of the family, showing their family that building and where they got to work. And that really is a gratifying testament that you got success. Appreciate this award immensely, particularly the part that led us to TIF, an idea that came from Frank Hill originally to do it. Because when we walked around town with the architects and with the landscape architects, we saw that while Oklahoma City had done a great job with some of the buildings, that the public spaces, the streets, the parks, were really in derelict condition. That maps had gone a long way with the buildings, but the streets and parks were antiquated, out of shape, led by the Myriad Gardens, which was virtually vacant day after day. And to plow all of our tax dollars into those projects to help the development that a lot of others before us have already done and after us will continue to do is gratifying, because you can now look at that park and see a tremendous amount of people in there at all times of the day having fun and enjoying a public park as it should be. So thank you very, very much.